Hey everyone, welcome to Dow's Weekly Digest. So what was your challenge this week? I maybe had a few there, so I have some recollections to share with you a little bit. I use a phrase, and it again sticks in this old head: never close the patent office. Always something new. LaDonna Sue, my wife, she takes care of me. And so every, 6 to 9 months, I get a new toothbrush. So I'm using this toothbrush probably the last month. And I take sanitizer and clean it before I put it away. And I take a habit of I kind of hit it on the sink. And I'm doing that. And all of a sudden, it's buzzing, folks, in my hand. And so later that night I said, "Say, did you know?" I know she did because she bought it. I said, "That little toothbrush you bought me, that's an electric toothbrush." And she said, "Well, yeah, it is. It's got a on and off switch there." I said, "I did not know that." So never close the patent off. So I've been using this toothbrush just bearing down, and I didn't even know it was an electric toothbrush because in this old mind, I envisioned this great big old, remember them old big old electric toothbrushes? No way could this little bitty thing be that. And so I learned something new there with my toothbrush there and LaDonna Sue taking care of me. Well, we're into the month of September. Kind of getting back to school, some things and different items there. In the month of September, it was the month that I went and visited my mom in Panama, and that was the week of her birthday. And so it was quite a celebration. So in the month of September, Lillian will turn 93 years old. And she still lives, folks, in Horconcito, a little village. So September, indeed a super month there. Years back, in maybe the month of getting fall and everything, we would go up to Bridgewater, South Dakota, do a little pheasant hunting. And we'd go up kind of the interstate and we'd get off on Highway 44 and we'd go west. And as we got closer to Bridgewater, there was an area there. There's no building there now or anything. It was called Stanley's Corner. Stanley's Corner there on old Highway 44 going to Bridgewater. Well, before that, as a kid, small, I can remember this type of graffiti. It was signs, and every so many feet there would be another sign. And together, that graffiti made a story. And it would say, "Dear lover boy, your picture came, but your doggone beard won't fit the frame. Burma shave." It was Burma shave signs. And again, folks, in my recollection, I can still remember that. And there's actually collections, I guess, they used it a lot on old Highway 66 that went across the United States, a Burma shave. Now, to some of you folks, Burma shave was a shave cream that they, about the time of the old Gillette, you had Burma shave. So a type of graffiti. Today's topic is going to be T.C.B, taking care of business. T.C.B. How do we take care of business? And along with that, then, relation to maybe the Bible and everything is going to be a word that comes forth, and that word is going to be Telos. Telos maybe gives us a little direction on T.C.B. So those are the two things to keep in mind. But before we get into that, folks, let's get into a little cowboy wisdom. He that would perfect his work must first sharpen his tools. Perfect your work, you must first what? Sharpen your tools. How are you sharpening your tools? You might be a Lutheran. You might be a Lutheran if one key ingredient in all your hot dishes is Campbell's cream of mushroom soup. If that's a key ingredient. And on the salad side, one of the key ingredients is Jell. The choice is really what color it's to be. But if those two things happen, you might be a Lutheran indeed. How about some South Dakota trivia? South Dakota trivia, we're going to go east of the Missouri. The town is Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It's the early part of the 20th century. Sioux Falls, South Dakota is #1 in the nation for divorces. You see, at that time, South Dakota had it that you could file for divorce 3 months after you're married. Other states had 1 year. And in South Dakota, you did not have to be a resident of South Dakota to get that divorce. In 1 year, Sioux Falls had over 6,000 divorces. 6,000 divorces in 1 year. Now get this, the rest of the story, folks. The city council of Sioux Falls later years thought so well of setting that record that they raised money to put a historical marker in Sioux Falls for having over 6,000 divorces in 1 year. So back then, as maybe now at times, your city dollars being used for different things. South Dakota trivia, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Well, I said the theme was what? Taking care of business and Telos. So let's see what the Bible says about this. Matthew 5:48, and I'm going to use the Amplified version here. You therefore will be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. You therefore will be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Now a little explanation here in the Amplified version. You therefore will be perfect, growing into spiritual maturity, both in mind and character, actively integrating godly values into your daily life. So that word perfect, maybe another word could be perfected, is in this Greek word telos. And telos means the act of becoming. It's not saying I'm perfect today. I am becoming what perfect did. It's always in a sense of what doing things better or becoming better into, as that Amplified version brought up, into what maybe you'd say godly type characteristics. So always with the end in mind, if you want, as the 7 Habits of Covey's book was. One of them was what? Always have in the beginning the end in mind. So the telos. There was a teacher, and this teacher actually started teaching in a one-room school as a teenager. And then later, as the teacher got their degree and so forth, they taught in a little bitty town. And they taught kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and sixth grade. Now, when they're in the town, the teacher got a teacher's aide, Margie. And Margie was kind of a shy lady and maybe at times lacked confidence. But this teacher kind of, the phrase, took her under her wing and mentored her and let her know that, hey, again in this telos theme, you can become a good teacher if that's what you want to do, Margie. And showed her ways then to use her talents and be a teacher. In fact, later, Margie did go to college, got her degree, and guess what? Became that teacher. Well, later in her career, she was honored by a certain class. You see, she taught that class in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and even in sixth grade. So years later, when that class graduated from high school, instead of asking some maybe college president locally to speak and everything, they asked that teacher to speak. And in doing so, they then awarded her with this bell as a type of maybe something that she could keep in honor of her. You see, that teacher was taking care of business. That teacher was fulfilling her telos, from what? Teaching students to teaching the teacher to be a teacher by helping Margie. And oh, by the way, that teacher was my mom, Doris Barling. Another little simple object lesson to biblically expand upon that word telos. You see this little pine cone. Folks, we got hundreds of them. If you want them, I got them. Some would ask, is this a perfect pine cone? Well, you kind of look at it, it's not really perpendicular, is it? See? Doesn't maybe look in our viewpoints as maybe what being perfect. It's got some flaws. But the telos of the pine cone, the end in mind, is that this pine cone, what? Release its seeds, and from this pine cone, it helps pine trees to grow. That would be the telos of that. So, yes, we'll have our own imperfections. Come to know that what in your telos, in your journey, you will be getting what better and better to fulfill the end in mind. So the end in mind for this little pine cone is what? To have more pine trees. The telos for the teacher was to have another teacher. What's your telos? Well, let me share with you one way that financial markets works towards its telos. It's taking care of business. One way we do this is maybe through the technology and looking at ways that through technology tools that different carriers have, along with us purchasing and developing technology all the time to make taking care of business more of a efficient process. But I would say our most important asset is its people. And let me share with you just a small little example of the way that they're fulfilling their telos there. It's a particular group. It's our case managers, folks. Our case managers. Every day, they look at themselves and look at ways that they can then do better and become better case managers. 100% of our case managers apply themselves with continuing education to know more about this industry. And these are industry-wide recognized courses that they're taking. And we have some case managers that have a degree that would be recognized in college or getting college credits. And we have others that are working, again, on this telos of becoming better with the end in mind. Because they know that they've been entrusted with your business. And you, in turn, was entrusted by your client. And they take that very seriously. That'd be your case manager. You know, on the horizon, we here at Financial Markets, too, in developing our telos, we belong to various organizations. One of these national organizations that we belong to, in working in conjunction with a national recognized educational organization of LIMRA and LOMA, folks, they're going to develop a course for a certified case manager. And I can't wait, and I know that our case managers here will be very enthusiastic, and again, helping them fulfill their telos in taking those courses. Be excellent, excellent. So here at Financial Markets, the patent office is not closed. We're always looking at ways to do better, to become better. Folks, we have a partner here, a carrier, that I think is taking care of business. In fact, business, I would say that's their niche. They help with the needs of business. Business needs. That company is Principal. Principal Life. Let me show just a couple pamphlets if I can here, folks. So my example here is Solutions for Your Business. How prepared is your client in what lies ahead? As they take their telos journey and looking at the horizon, how prepared are they for it? And that comes from asking them questions, folks. Asking them questions. Maybe it's just as simplistic as, what type of tax entity are you? Ask them what type of tax entity are you. That's a little bit of an informational clue right there. Ask them, have they had their business evaluated? You're going to find a lot of them have not. And yet you're going to find that the business is going to be very much part of their telos when they look at that R word called retirement. But they don't know what the business is worth. You can help them with principle. They can do a business evaluation for you, folks. Ask your internal wholesaler on how they can assist you with that. Another example. This deals with the ag market. Talks about a simplified planning. Now they also know with the ag market that what a lot of times when they get towards the end of taxes, they show a loss. And more than 1 year, maybe they show a loss. So they have resources and tools specifically, folks, for the ag market on how to still what help them with that business evaluation. And many times, like other businesses though, the S word comes in succession. If I am going to retire and my Telos down the journey, who's going to take over this business? Or do I indeed intend to sell it? If so, how am I going to get the most dollars for it? And what is it worth? What is it worth? Part of that Telos journey can be the life event of needing long-term care. Principal has a specific path that can be looked at. This is called a Medicaid compliant annuity. A Medicaid compliant annuity. There has to be baby boomers out there and grandparents in which that life event is very much at the edge. They're at the precipice of going down there. The Medicaid compliant annuity can be a resource. So just look at those resources right there. Another resource that they have is, think of this, folks. How many insurance companies do you know that will cover disability income for their 401k? For your client's 401k, what's going to happen if they become disabled? Who's going to make contributions to that? Principal keeps that in mind. They've got that resource that working with your internal wholesaler, you can help that client with that need. You can see in taking care of business to them is a capital B. They're trying to look at all 360 degrees of different needs, and they've got the resources. That's why they're part of our premier partners, folks. Financial Markets looking at being a top insurance brokerage for you, taking care of business. Principal is one of our partners. So I've just touched a little bit of the so-called iceberg. Contact your internal wholesaler and ask them about that. In particular, how many of your businesses that you take care of right now, when was the last time they had a business evaluation? That's a good springboard. So be sure to ask your internal wholesaler. I said the theme was what? Taking care of business and Telos. So let me now get to the recommendations. A book I would recommend is entitled From Good to Great. That author is Jim Collins. He does observations of businesses under any one definition, how they do go from good to great. They set themselves apart by doing so. So, an excellent book, From Good to Great, Jim Collins. How about a poem? A poem, maybe you wouldn't think of this author, maybe uncommon in this category of taking care of business, but it's this, Dr. Seuss. It's not green eggs and ham. This poem is entitled, I Love My Job. I Love My Job. Look that one up. How about the movie? Oh, folks, the movie. I can identify with the movie. You have an older gentleman. He is 70 years old. He is now in a different venue and audience than he ever been before. When he goes to work, folks, he goes to his closet and he's got umpteen ties. And he goes to work. Nobody else does, but he goes to work in his suit. And in his suit, he puts his cross pins. And he's got a calculator. I mean, there's a lot of attributes there, folks, that I can identify with, being this gray-haired baby boomer. This movie is entitled The Intern. And the 70-year-old is Robert De Niro. And he becomes an intern for the CEO. That's played by Anne Hathaway. So he's got this young lady who's probably in her 20s or 30s, and yet he knows his Telos is not done. He understands that he has then things to contribute yet. There's a quote there that's in the movie. He says that when musicians look to retire, they never retire. They just stop when the music stops. And he said, within me, the music hasn't stopped. So I think it's an excellent movie, and you can see I can identify with it, and I have seen it more than once. So it's called The Intern. How about the song? Well, the song. I said, what's the theme? T.C.B. It's 1973. This group came from Canada, Bachman Turner Overdrive, and they come out with a song that was a hit, and it's entitled Taking Care of Business. A little side note there, when they was going to record, their piano player couldn't make it. And so they were a little bit bewildered, of course. But in the next recording studio room was a gentleman by the name of Norman Durkee, Durkee. Now, Norman was playing the piano, and he was doing commercials. And he was paid by the hour. So they went over, and Norman looked at the music probably 15 minutes, and he did the clicks, and what you hear on Taking Care of Business, the piano riffs, that's by Norman. And he only looked at that about 15 minutes before he did the playing itself. So, taking care of business. How about my power phrase, folks, of taking care of business? This comes from the gentleman Ben Feldman. And think of taking care of business, and think of Telos. End in mind. Goals aren't enough. You need goals plus deadlines. Goals big enough to get you excited about that deadline that you make the run for it. So the deadline makes you run for it, and the goal gets you excited. And one isn't much good without the other. But together, Ben says, it can be tremendous. So with goals, you need what? Specific deadlines, Ben says. And he set some big goals there. Indeed, he did. That brings us to the video. The video comes to us from Principle. It's been said that God has his sense of humor. All you got to do, folks, is tell him your plans. Because in his telos for you, it can be different than what sometimes this old mind thinks. Well, this video maybe gives a little example of that.
More coffee?
Yeah, thanks. Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I can just quit school and get a job.
It's okay. Daddy's here. Daddy!
Hey!
Hi.
Hey, buddy.
I think we can do this.
Really?
Adam Bailey. Adam Bailey.
So as they said, folks, what? Life is not always as planned, is it? But yet that couple had what? The telos in mind. They had the end in mind. And with Principle's help, they got there. So remember this. God's plan for you, GP for you, God's telos for you, equals G. And blessed are those who ease the pain of misfortune through T.C.B., for they shall be called insurance agents. living Telos. You take care.